Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Dell, founder of Unlimited Possibilities by Kim, and I'm excited to create this new weekly series called A Moment for Clarity. So real quickly, why clarity? Why is clarity so important? Because without being clear on what it is that you want and desire and want to do and goals, you can't ask the right questions. You can't make decisions that move you forward. So being clear is incredibly important. So my goal with this weekly series is to help inspire you and kind of give you maybe tips and tricks and information and stories that help you to get more clear about what it is that you want. So this is episode 1, and that is, what do you really want? Right? And that's a question we need to ask ourselves a bit more often. So let's take a moment for clarity, okay? I want to start this week with a question that probably sounds pretty simple, but if you really sit with it, it can truly change everything. What do you really want? And I want you to hear this the right way, not what feels realistic, not what your current situation says is possible, not what you've been conditioned to believe you should want, right? I'm asking you, if you were being completely honest with yourself, what do you actually want your life to look like? Because here's what I've noticed, and you might see this yourself, right? You might see this in yourself. At some point, most of us stop asking that question. We stop thinking in terms of what we want, and we start thinking in terms of what we can do, right? What makes sense, what feels safe, what fits inside the life we already have. And without even realizing it, we start building our lives around limitations instead of intention. And that's usually the moment where people start to feel stuck, right? Do you feel that? You're just stuck. You don't know where you're going. You're not really sure what you're supposed to do. You're just stuck. Not because they don't have options, not because you don't have options, but because they've lost clarity. And that's probably where you're finding yourself right now as well, is you've lost some clarity. They're moving, they're doing things, they're checking all the boxes, right? You're doing all the things right, but it doesn't feel aligned. It doesn't feel right. And it's not because something is wrong with them or that there's something wrong with you. It's because they're disconnected from what they actually want. And this is exactly where the clarity practice begins. Before you can change anything in your life, before you can move forward in a way that actually feels good, you have to get clear. Clear on how you want to feel, clear on what actually matters to you, clear on what your life looks like when it feels aligned and not just functional. And I'm not just talking about one area of your life. I'm talking about the full picture, everything, your peace of mind, how you feel when you wake up in the morning, your energy, your health, the relationships you're in. Do they feel supportive? Do they feel real? The level of freedom you have to do what you want when you want. That matters. All of it matters. And the truth is, you don't create that kind of life by accident. It doesn't just happen. You don't get to just sit there and go, oh, well, hopefully one day it'll happen, right? It doesn't. You create it by getting honest with yourself first. And let's face it, for a lot of people, that's the uncomfortable part. I know it was for me. Because if you really ask yourself what you want, you might realize it's different from the life you're actually currently living. And that can feel confronting. But it's also where everything starts to shift, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's a good thing. So let me just throw a story out to you and give you a little example of my own life. For years, I have been doing really good things, had some really great careers, made some really great money, had some friendships, good everything, right? However, I wasn't really happy. I wasn't really enjoying. I was stressed all the time. And then things started happening money wise and lack and financial problems and just issue after issue. But I just kept doing the same things and living and hoping that one day it was going to get better. And if I worked harder and all this stuff and just kind of living on autopilot. And then recently I got into a job with a company and their training was horrendous. I mean, really bad. It was basically, let's give you a bunch of information. They think that more content equals learning, but they didn't actually train you on anything. And then they threw you out and said, go for it. And I was beyond frustrated, like ridiculously frustrated. But one thing I remember that I learned from Tony Robbins was when you get frustrated, to get excited, because that's usually when you have a breakthrough. And I did. I was incredibly frustrated, and I went home one day and I was trying to reflect and figure out what was going on, what I needed to do, and how to get out of this cycle because this was awful. I'm tired of living this way. And I was so mad at the training. I'm like, I'm going to show everybody why training is so important. I'm going to show companies why they need to train their employees. I'm going to train employees to know that why they need to have personal development to make themselves accountable for their own careers and so they can get better. And I just going on and on. And suddenly I realized I need to get back into training. I need to get back into personal development, the thing that I'm good at, the thing I'm passionate about, the thing I love. And then, long story short, I started my podcast today. So, when you're really honest with yourself, and that's what I had to do, I had to be honest with myself. I had to understand and say, what did I really want? What was it I was truly loving and missing? And I love helping people find the best part of themselves and get better. Having that aha moment when they finally get it. That is exciting because they get excited, I get excited. And then I want to teach more, right? I know that's what I'm good at. That's my passion. That's the things I love to do. So one way or another, that's what I'm going to do. Hence this podcast, right? But I had to get honest. I had to really confront myself and say, what is it I want? Not what I'm capable of. I'm capable of all kinds of things. That doesn't mean I want to do it, right? So instead of being necessarily the responsible person, not to say I'm not saying don't be responsible, right? You have to still be responsible, get through your current moment. But what is it that you want to shoot for? What is it you really want to do or be or go or accomplish? Not what you think others think you should do, what you think is possible in your current circumstances, but instead, what is it you really want? The thing that you have always wanted, but put on the back burner for everybody else, right? So here's what I want you to do today. If you have a notebook or a journal or a notepad or anything like that, I want you to take a moment and reflect, okay? I want you to do this. Now, I don't want you to overthink this, and I don't want you to try to figure everything in life out right in this moment, okay? I just want you to start with one question, just one, and that is, if I could create a life I genuinely love, what does that look like? Okay? And when you answer it, I don't want you to stop at the surface level response. I want you to push yourself a little further. right? So obviously the first things that normally come to mind, I want a better job, I want to make more money, I want to live in a nice house, I want to have a new car, I want to have, great relationships with my friends and family, I want to do all this stuff. And that's great. That's great. But I want you to go deeper. So after you get the surface level stuff out, then ask yourself, okay, what else? And listen to what comes up, right? And then again, okay, that's great. What else? And I want you to keep going and going until you can't think of anything else. Nothing comes to mind. This is really important. Do not judge yourself. Do not edit yourself, right? Whatever you're writing, let it come, because it's your honest internal voice speaking. It wants you to hear it. So if you automatically start to judge it and go, no, that's not right. I shouldn't even think about that way. No, this is you. This is you talking, your inner voice. You need to start listening to it. So do not judge, do not edit, just write. Let it happen. No matter how silly it might sound when it comes on your mind, write it down. And you keep asking yourself, what else? What else? And when there's nothing else, when you can't think of anything else, when nothing else comes to mind, then and only then are you done. Okay? Let yourself go beyond what feels realistic right now, because this isn't about what you can create today. This is about getting clear on what's actually true for you. So write it down. Get it out of your head and onto paper, because when you can see it, when you can actually look at it, that's when clarity starts to take shape. And the moment you have clarity, you stop drifting. You stop going through the motions. You stop living on autopilot, and you start making decisions with intention. And that's where everything begins. Okay? So do this exercise. Do this moment of reflection. I highly, highly recommend it. Reflection is an amazing process if you're honest with yourself. Do not judge. Do not edit. Let whatever comes, come. Write it down. Put it down for maybe an hour or two, maybe even a day. Then go back and read it. And what does it touch inside you? What resonates with what you wrote down? These are the things that we're going to build upon. And these will be the building blocks, okay? So do this exercise. Get really clear. What do you want? Not what you think the world thinks you should do. And get it down on paper. And that, my friends, is your moment of clarity for this week. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.